and February 28th, 2026, the day the Middle East erupted. In a coordinated campaign named Operation Epic Fury, the United States and Israel launched massive strikes against Iran. The world watched fireballs streak across the skies of the Gulf, not just over Tehran, but over Dubai, Bahrain, and Qatar. And there came the news: the killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. President Donald Trump called on the Iranian people to rise up and take back your country. He was betting on a quick, decisive victory, regime change from the air. But 2 days into the war, the reality looks far more complex. The Iranian government did not collapse. U.S. allies are under fire, and questions are emerging about whether the United States has the ammunition to finish what it started. Today, we analyze the miscalculations, the military reality, and the confusing signals coming from the White House. Did Trump expect Iran to fall like Syria? And what happens when the interceptors run out? To understand the Trump administration's strategy, you have to look at what happened just months before. In December 2025, the decades-long Assad regime in Syria fell to rebel forces. It was a seismic shock. For years, the Shia Crescent, Iran's network of influence, seemed unstoppable. Suddenly, it was shattered. Hezbollah was weakened, Hamas was devastated, and Syria was gone. The strategic logic in Washington seemed clear. If the regime in Damascus could fall so quickly, why not Tehran? Especially if you remove the figurehead who held it all together. That was the bet. But according to reports from Reuters and the BBC, it was a bet made against the advice of U.S. intelligence agencies. In the weeks before the strike, the CIA presented assessments to the White House concluding that killing Khamenei would not lead to a popular uprising. There were two fundamental flaws in the Syria comparison. First, unlike Syria's fractured military, Iran's security apparatus, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, is deeply entrenched in the economy and society. As one U.S. official noted, the IRGC benefits from a vast patronage network and showed zero signs of defection during massive protests just a month prior. Second, the opposition is fractured and lacks the organization to seize power. Trump himself seemed to acknowledge this reality, stating he planned to reopen communications with Iran, tacitly admitting the government is still in charge. Jonathan Panikoff, a former senior U.S. intelligence official, put it bluntly: the remnants, those with the weapons, are likely to use them to keep power. The White House bet on a vacuum being filled by freedom fighters. Instead, they got a swift succession, with a temporary leadership council taking over in Tehran. The gamble failed. While the political collapse didn't happen, the military retaliation did. And it exposed a second, perhaps more dangerous miscalculation: capacity. Iran retaliated immediately, not just against Israel, but against the Gulf Arab states, the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar. They hit a luxury hotel in Dubai's Palm Jumeirah and targets near the U.S. Fifth Fleet Base in Bahrain. Tehran's message was clear: if you host American bases, you are a target. They are internationalizing the battlefield. This brings us to the critical question: does the U.S. have enough interceptors to protect everyone? The short answer, according to current and former officials speaking to the Wall Street Journal, is not for long. The U.S. is in a race against time. The problem is magazine depth, the stockpile of munitions. THAAD and Patriot batteries deployed across the region are firing costly interceptors at Iranian ballistic missiles at a furious rate. The Pentagon is consuming Tomahawk cruise missiles and other precision weapons faster than the defense industry can replace them. Even Israel, which has the famous Iron Dome, is reportedly low on Arrow 3 interceptors. the only system capable of taking out some ballistic threats in the upper atmosphere. This was actually a critical issue in January 2026. Reports emerged that Prime Minister Netanyahu asked Trump to delay a previous planned strike because Israel wasn't ready. They didn't have the volume of interceptors needed to withstand the expected barrage. So, here is the possible and terrifying scenario that keeps Pentagon planners up at night. Imagine the stockpile runs low. The U.S. has to prioritize. Do you protect Israeli cities or U.S. bases in Qatar? And if the defense umbrella has holes, what happens when Iran fires another wave of 500 missiles? As one analyst put it, eventually it boils down to numbers. How many interceptors will we have versus how many launchers they can field? If the U.S. runs out, the devastation in the Gulf and the oil infrastructure that the global economy depends on could be catastrophic. This brings us to one of the most bizarre aspects of this conflict: the talk signals coming through Italy. Why is Trump sending messages through Rome while American bombs are falling on Tehran? To understand this, we have to look at the days leading up to the attack. On February 27th, just one day before the strikes, Italy's foreign ministry urged all its citizens to leave Iran immediately. Britain closed its embassy. These are things governments do when they know an attack is imminent. But simultaneously, diplomatic channels were buzzing. Oman, a frequent mediator, sent its foreign minister to Washington to meet with VP J.D. Vance. And, critically, President Trump said on February 26th that more talks were expected. Why Italy? Italy has historically maintained strong commercial and diplomatic ties with Tehran. Using Italy as a back channel is a way to send messages without formal recognition. A way to say, we are bombing your nuclear sites, but we don't want total war. However, this dual-track approach collapsed because of a fundamental disagreement over the agenda. In the weeks prior, Iran had agreed to talk about its nuclear program, but drew a red line. Its ballistic missiles and support for regional militias were off the table. For the U.S. and its Gulf allies, that was a non-starter. You can't have peace if Iran keeps the very weapons they are using to strike Dubai today. As Marco Rubio stated before the attack, Iran's refusal to discuss its missiles was a big, big problem. The diplomacy was a screen. The U.S. wanted capitulation. Iran wanted limited talks. When that failed, Trump pivoted to force, hoping the bombing would achieve what the talks couldn't. The Italy channel is now likely a crisis hotline, trying to ensure this doesn't spiral into a war that engulfs Europe via migrants and oil shocks. So, who is controlling American policy right now? Is it a calculated strategy? Or is it, as some critics claim, a freewheeling approach detached from reality? The Trump administration sold this as a limited campaign. Vice President Vance assured the public there was no chance of an extended regional war. But the president himself has been sending mixed signals, saying he could take over the whole thing or end it in days. Democrats in Congress, led by Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, are furious, arguing the administration launched a war of choice without consent from Congress or a clear strategy for the day after. What we are witnessing is a high-stakes experiment. The U.S. is trying to topple a 47-year-old regime using only air power, while simultaneously defending half a dozen nations from missile barrages, all while hoping the ammunition doesn't run out. The Iranian government has not collapsed. It has rallied. The IRGC is still in control. And now, the United States faces a choice: double down with a ground invasion Trump promised to avoid, or watch its stockpiles dwindle as Iran keeps firing. One thing is clear: the assumption that Iran would fall like Syria was a profound miscalculation. And as the sun rises over the Gulf, the only certainty is that this war is far from over. If you liked this analysis, please consider becoming a subscriber to the channel. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.